Welcome to Season 4 of Might in Motion, the podcast that champions motivation, momentum, mindfulness, and might. I'm Mariana Kinney, your host, bringing you conversations with inspiring leaders and innovators who challenge the status quo and push boundaries in their careers and lives. Whether you're here to grow, lead, or ignite your own journey, we're here to keep you moving forward. Let's dive in. Today, I welcome Kevin Parkerson and Kevin Higgins, the co-hosts of Kev Talks Real World Global Logistics podcast. With over 65 years of combined experience in global logistics, Kevin Parkerson and Kevin Higgins bring unparalleled expertise to the table as co-hosts of Kev Talks Real World Global Logistics. Both Kevins have an extensive background in shaping logistics strategies for top-tier companies and have been at the forefront of pioneering industry innovations. Kevin Parkerson has spent 30 years leading global logistics teams at renowned companies like Walmart, Dollar General, Hasbro, and J.B. Hunt Transport. With a focus on driving value and optimizing supply chain networks, Kevin specializes in creating strategic relationships with logistics service providers, leveraging his deep knowledge of global logistics and supply chain management to deliver growth and efficiency. As the founder of KP Global Logistics Consulting, he has a seasoned perspective on business optimization and global logistics strategies. Kevin Higgins, with 35 plus years in logistics, has a remarkable track record, including 11 years at Walmart, where he played a pivotal role in building their global transportation group. He is the co-patent applicant for Walmart's global carrier allocation and booking system and has held executive roles at companies like Transplace, DSL, and Dwell Logistics. Kevin co-founded ChassisFinder.com, the first marine chassis reservation system, and successfully exited with Milestone's acquisition. As the founder of Orion Global Logistics and CEO of SwiftB2B, Kevin continues to drive innovation in supply chain technology, focusing on process improvement, technology development, and strategy execution. I am really excited to have two Kevins today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Heck yeah. Awesome. This is going to be great. This is going to be fun. I started to say of 65 years total, I think Higgins has about 60 and I have maybe 5. So he definitely, as I have to remind every episode, he's the oldest.
Yes.
And then they add my 25 to it. So I'm still kind of a baby. This makes me feel good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We're creeping up on 100.
You know, I always love to hear people's origin story. Like what made the two of you actually hopefully you fell in love with supply chain because you've been with it long enough. What's your origin story? What was that magical moment?
Yeah, Higgins, you jump in.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, if you can remember that far back.
Yeah, the magical moment. I'll jump in. Well, I'll try to keep this as brief as humanly possible. But I grew up in a truck driving family. My biological dad, who passed away when I was really young, I was 5 years old. He drove a truck for a brief period of time. My stepdad, who raised me, was a truck driver from both LTL and full truckload. And I always just I love trucks. I'll stop and look at a Peterbilt or Kenworth that's on the side of the road for sale anytime. But I didn't set out to get in transportation and logistics as a career. I was a dental technician. I used to make crown and bridge work, and do what?
Smile real big.
Yeah. So look at that. These are all real, by the way. I didn't make them. But I was either going into the Navy to be a dental technician on an aircraft carrier, or I was going to relocate and go to a dental lab. And I just started dating this young lady, and her father owned a small trucking company. And I didn't know it at the time, but they kind of conspired to keep me from doing both of those things or either one of those things. And he offered me a job in operations at his local trucking company in Bentonville, Arkansas. And he asked me to come take over or, learn operations and work in his LTL. He was an agent for an LTL carrier. And so he offered me more money than I was making. And I'm like, heck yeah, I'll do that and stay around town. And so that was the beginning of me getting into transportation and logistics, and started in LTL and that company was acquired by one company, and it was a season of holding companies buying a bunch of transportation companies. And so I ended up at JB Hunt Transport in 1988. And then same young lady that I was dating had a former family member that was a president of a trucking company. He recruited me to go to work for him, and then recruited me to go into the international business. And then that led to me ultimately getting the opportunity to go create global transportation at Walmart stores in 1994. And man, I tell you what, it's one of those things that I love solving problems. I'm a problem solver at heart. And I feel like that I just had an opportunity to solve problems all the time and create things. I love building and creating. And so that just led me down that road to, and it bit me, and I've stayed there ever since. And I love building it, as you can tell by my resume, 11 years at Walmart, and then build Transplace International, and then build ChassisFinder.com, and then build the U.S. portion of Dwell Logistics, and then build my own business. So, it's stuck with me. I can't get away from it. 38 years and counting.
I love it. That's exciting. All right, Parkinson, top
I was
that.
about to say buzzer, time's up, end of story, my turn.
It's all you now, KP.
I know. Well, in a way, there's a lot of similarities outside of our names, and our stories. But I graduated with the marketing communications degree, and right out of college, I married my college sweetheart, and she's from Northwest Arkansas. And we had an agreement that whoever got the first job, that's where we would relocate, or that's where we would live. And thankfully, she had a job already in Northwest Arkansas. So I came with her with the marketing communications degree. And, at that time, this was many decades ago, you definitely, applied at the big three, which were Walmart, JB Hunt, and Tyson. And I applied to all three. And the first one that called me was JB Hunt. And my supply chain career literally started there. And from the ground up, learned so much about transportation, great mentors, great leaders, great experience. And then the supply chain bug bit me from that point on. And like Kevin was saying, I love the idea of solving problems and having, seeing cargo move, whether it was coffee or if it was shoes or whatever it was that was getting moved across the country. It was because I was solving problems and the decisions that I was making. I also got to be on the ground floor, the beginning of the intermodal division at JB Hunt. The quantum branding was at that point in time. They've resurrected and brought that back here recently. But I was, able to be on the ground floor of that. But this is where Kevin and I's story really started to intersect. Is he called me when I was at JB Hunt and said, "Hey, there's this job. It's called the Jones Act." And I knew nothing about maritime, nothing about ocean logistics. All I knew was trucks and trains. And Walmart took a chance on me. Kevin took a chance on me. And that phone call literally changed my life because I then stayed at Walmart for over 18 years. All of that in the maritime, international logistics, ocean logistics. I started in the Jones Act for a while, moved to the international, and again, had phenomenal industry experts, mentors, leaders, service providers that took me under their wing and taught me everything A to Z, how to conduct myself in a meeting, corporate America, maritime, all of that. And that whole time was really just a phenomenal time for me to learn about supply chain. And then from Walmart, I had an opportunity to work at Dollar General and Hasbro. And today I'm have my own consulting business, all because of that phone call of this crazy guy named Higgins, that allowed, took a chance on me and gave me a chance to learn, supply chain, maritime. So
yeah, you didn't just learn it, you led it. And so I will say that when we started global transportation, the Jones Act was, was a small portion of what global transportation did. And you saw it from leadership changes and everything else, but really formed those relationships and formed that supply chain into something that those markets could depend on. And I mean, when you're offshore like that, you're not on the mainland, it's a lot more difficult to get goods there. And I'll commend KP because he just did a phenomenal job creating and kind of leading that, taking it to the next level. So I don't think anybody at all regrets the decision, for KP to come into Walmart and take over that Jones Act. So
Yeah, no, thanks. Again, that Jones Act was, I think about that. I talk about that. I want to give props to, at that time, there was a gentleman by the name of Phil War and a lady by CJ Hennessy that came and
CJ.
spent the first week with me every day in a conference room,
Yeah.
teaching me 101. I mean, 101 maritime international
Yeah.
logistics.
Yeah.
And that was phenomenal. And that was an investment that they were making, in the company for Walmart, but to me as a person, they were spending their time and they were educating me, schooling me. And I've never forgotten that. But that was really, a pivotal moment for me of understanding how relationships were so important in this industry. And I got schooled by both of those, and very, very appreciative and thankful for that experience.
I always say that supply chain is a people business. I mean, that's the bottom line. And it's relationships, like you said, which is so funny because both of your careers in supply chain started with relationships, people you were dating, But it really is amazing on how those connections allow you, when you're willing to create a relationship that's in a positive space. It's not like all one-sided, right? You can really drive cool innovation and change. And that, there's a period of time when I had offshore for Home Depot and I knew nothing what Jones Act was until I got that gig, right? It was just same kind of scenario. And like a month after getting it, Hurricane Maria and Irma hit. And talk about like having to learn really fast, but also how to trust your providers and the relationships that they had and your team. Like I was blessed with people on my team that had 10 to 15 years of experience that, I had to lean into.
Yeah. I say this all the time, and just here recently, this is fresh on my mind. So I want to share it, in regards to how relationships matter more than you think. Like you said, the supply chain, it's a people business. Build strong relationships with your suppliers, your customers, your colleagues, your mentors. And I promise you, the deals you negotiate today come down to the trust that you've built, through many, many years. Your network will open doors that a lot of times data alone will not. So really invest in the relationships.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more.
Lots of new managers, people may have recently been promoted from individual contributor to a manager role, or maybe now they're new managers of managers. So moving from that manager to senior manager.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you make those moves, it might be hard to start building that trust quickly. And I'd love your thoughts on maybe some tips or tricks that help new leaders move what I like to call from chaos to community, right? Like when you are over a team, you're new to the team or they're new to you, there's chaos. There's like, who is this person? Should I even like reveal anything to them, right? But you got to get a point to that community where everybody's working together. So just really, what are some tips or tricks that you have for new leaders to gain that trust and build those relationships quickly?
Yeah. Higgins, you think about that, but I want to mention something where you talked about chaos, because I want people considering the supply chain industry to know you need to get comfortable with the chaos and the uncertainty. If you want predictability, you're in the wrong industry. So supply chain professionals, you got to learn to thrive in chaos, whether it's, a port shutdown or supplier failures, huge spikes in demand, whatever it might be. The best leaders are problem solvers who really stay calm under pressure. So if you're looking for something that's not chaotic, I don't know what that is, but it's not supply chain.
Yeah. And I think there's a, there's a couple of songs that have the same title and they're called The Beautiful Mess. Right. And I really, I see our industry supply chain as kind of a beautiful mess. I mean, there are moments of just wonderful orchestration, and you see everything working smoothly. Those times are fewer than they are now, than they used to be, I should say. But it is, I think it can, back to the relationships, those relationships help you orchestrate and move through that, and move through the chaos. Right. And it's just, it's not always just radical chaos, but it's different. You're always problem solving. And I think what I would say to new leaders moving into those roles, because I was one, I came from, my first job, as I said, was with an LTL company. And the first day on the job, I was unloading boxes of Daisy BBs out of a 28-foot pup, right? And stacking them on pallets and getting them ready to different locations. And so then I, moved into the office, and I was handling the paperwork, and then, started to move up. But I would just say you need to be curious. Everybody needs to continue to be curious, and you need to understand what all of the roles are so that you can better support them. And there's some sage advice that I was given as I moved into, a director type role.
Is it in your book? Is it in your book?
It will be in my book.
Okay.
It's in my smart book.
Yeah.
But there's some sage advice that I got, when I was in the president of global sourcing's office one day, and I was leaving, and he charged me with getting something done. And I said, yes, sir. And I was walking out of the office, and he's like, hey, get it done. Don't do it. And that, I mean, that's 26 years ago. And that stuck with me because he knew the type of person I was. He knew I was going to go do it, because I wanted to see it through. And he was telling me, you now have people who you've trusted in these roles to get those things done and to do them. And so I would say you need to be curious, and you need to find your place in trusting your people and letting them do the work, do their jobs. Don't micromanage. There's nothing worse than a micromanager. You will lose great people every time you stand over their shoulder. So be curious, let your folks do their job and get it done, but don't do it.
Yeah. Let me just bolt on to that, just always be learning, always.
Yeah.
The logistics landscape, global logistics is always changing. It's got new technology, regulations, policies, all of that. But stay ahead by continuously learning, whether it's, industry events, maybe certifications, pick a brain of somebody as old as Higgins, over coffee, something like that. You
gotta buy that coffee,
right? But also really, really important was find a mentor and be one.
Yeah.
Find one and be one. So great mentors can really accelerate your career. So look for leaders. And I told people just a couple of days ago, I was talking to some college students, and I said, look for leaders who've been where you want to go. And if you do that, you're going to gain the experiences, but then pay it forward. That's what I mean by find a mentor and be one.
Yeah.
Help the next generation navigate their own supply chain journey. So find a mentor, whether it's formalized or informal, but then become one. And that, you quickly pivot to that. In your career, you'll find out, wait a minute, someone's looking at me to be a mentor, and you're in the middle of thinking you're trying to be a mentee, and all of a sudden you are the mentor. But that's, I would highly recommend, the younger generation, I like to say, is find a mentor somehow, some way. That's, and you may not like that branding. You may not like that name. You may not call it that. I have a lot, when I reflect on my career, I had a lot of mentors, and I didn't know that that's what they were. Now I look back on it now, and I know exactly that's what they were.
Yeah.
So find one.
And I think KP is, back to what you were saying, always be learning, right? And when I say be curious, I think you need to be curious about all facets of the business, right? You may
Mhm.
be in supply chain, you may be in logistics, but you need to go down and you need to spend time with your buyers. You need to spend time in merchandising.
Oh
You need
yeah.
to spend time in
Oh
accounting.
yeah.
You need to spend time in operations. I think, and the people that you learn from, the mentors in your life, don't always have to be in the same field. If you've got, if you're Home Depot or Walmart, Target, somebody like that, you need to travel with folks from store operations. You need to travel with your merchandiser. You need to understand how the business works as a whole, because that ultimately makes you better at who you are, because you can understand what they're up against. What are their
Spot
challenges,
on.
right?
Yep.
And if you don't understand what they're faced with all the time, you're not going to be as able to do your job and to provide them the value that they need, because you have all of these internal customers. It's not just the people buying your product at the store. It's all of these internal people that you have to satisfy. And I think just be curious and learn everything you can. Learn accounting, learn finance, learn carrying cost of goods, learn everything you possibly can.
Yep, you are spot on, and that's a master class right there, if I ever heard one. But here's the challenge: you get into your role, your job, and you're so inundated with it, and what you just
Mhm.
described is on the outside, and you don't think about doing that. And that's why having a mentor can help you do
Sure.
exactly that, and they will open the doors for you so that you can get those experiences, and so that you can, more importantly, understand and learn how important those experiences are that you can
Yeah.
go get. Otherwise, you're trying to get your job done and
Yeah.
you're putting your head down and you're doing a great job, but all this other stuff out here is just as important, and you
Yeah.
need to be doing that. And that's
Yeah.
that's where a mentor, a really good leader can help you do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think one of the best things in my career was being willing to take lateral moves.
Oh,
Allowed me to
Yes.
not just partner with somebody, but be part of store operations, home delivery, so final mile, inventory planning, sitting, side by side with your merchants, those buyers, and why are they making decisions that may sound like they make no sense, right?
Yeah.
Being willing to do domestic, international, offshore, they're all different. And
Yeah.
you find that when you're in the supply chain industry, there will be people that they really focus in, maybe just in trucking or just in rail, and that's great because they're so passionate about
yep.
it. But you need that mix with other individuals that are willing to take that broad stroke and learn different parts. To both of you guys have said this, but it makes you make decisions that are way more powerful, but I also think drive higher returns to the bottom line,
Hmm.
because you stop thinking like this. You can start thinking about, oh, this might be a cost in for my lane, but it's a net cost out for the company.
Yep.
Right. Right. Yeah.
100%. You'll see that all the time. I've seen it in my career. There was a decision made early on before I actually joined Walmart to put an import distribution center inland.
Mm.
And they were moving containers a long way inland. And
You did
um,
that? Are you the one that did that?
I
You
did
started
not.
that
I
mess?
did not do that.
Okay.
But understanding that side of it, and diving into the warehouse side, and then understanding my portion of that from a transload, from container drayage, from an overall cost model, we were able to actually put something together and implement it, so that we actually transloaded that into 53 footers versus 40 foot high cube containers. And if
Yep.
I hadn't had
Yep.
the understanding of the entire network, we wouldn't have been able to do that, because we would have just looked at our piece of that and said, you know what, it is what it is. But that's why it's
Yeah. I
so
hope the
important to
audience
understand all that.
It is. I hope the audience is really understanding, what we're trying to get at, because I think a lot of times you don't do some of these things because you don't see the value in it, or because you're
Yeah.
just so busy doing
Mm.
the day to day. And that's why it's so important for, the audience. That's why I love what you're doing, and that's why Kevin and I are doing a podcast, is that we get to give back in a way, and we get to share. And all we have to do is talk like this, and share our
Right.
experiences and plant a seed and get the audience to think about it, and also hear from people who've done it and know the value of it now, and can tell you, hey, look, I know it seems like a maybe busy work, or I'm not going to go networking, I'm not going to go do that. No, you need to. And I can tell you from experience, early in my career, I was like, I'm not going to go do that. I'm too busy doing this, and I can't get everything done. Forget about all this other stuff. And when you go do it, it helps you get all of your stuff done better and quicker and more efficiently.
Yeah.
So it has direct correlation, and I think we don't understand that sometimes. And I think that's what the crust of this is, that everyone, I'm hopeful can glean from this conversation.
Yeah.
It's funny that, there's so many folks that are in, they're in social media. They're trying to create a social media presence, let's say on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever. And there's algorithms, right, on the back end. Creating your own in-person network is the same thing. You have to be willing to invest time.
I love that.
And
that's exactly
have a
right.
give and take, so that if you want to accelerate your career, it's about relationships too, right? And if you're not top of mind because people don't see you, they don't hear from you, they don't know what you're doing, that's when it can become a problem from just a career pathing perspective as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And by the way, can we talk about LinkedIn algorithms? Can y'all explain that to me?
Do you understand it? Because don't ask me.
And how does that work?
I don't know.
I don't know.
That's a whole nother episode, right?
Yeah.
Changes a lot.
And should it even matter, right?
Right. It should. I mean, but it's interesting. Like I even did tests where it's like, okay, I'm going to pick 5 people that I'm really interested in.
Yes.
And I would go and purposely like, comment, and share their content. And then when you do that, it's like all of a sudden they're interacting with you because they see you too.
Yeah.
So why not do the exact same thing in your career? Oh, here's 3 people that I really admire, where I want to be where they've come from. I want to learn from them. Cool.
That's
well, you have to interact with them.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. You absolutely have to do that. I'll give a real life example. I'm not going to name this person's name. Oh man, I almost said his name. When I was at Transplace,
and we'll edit it out.
Yeah. When I was at Transplace, we started an intern program. I was the first one in Transplace to have an intern. He was from China, and then we had some other interns that came in. They didn't intern in my group, but these 2 interns took it upon themselves to come over and get to know me. And one of those wanted to be in international, and when he graduated college, I hired him as a sales rep in Transplace International. And I saw him, KP, at TPM, hired him. I think he graduated college in 2008, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? He's now the chief commercial officer for an NVO, for a 3PL.
Nice.
Great example.
And he took it upon himself, and I was open to him coming in and spending some time with us. And he took that opportunity. So you do have to reach out for those, and don't be afraid to go sit down. I did the same thing when I was 21 years old. I sat down with a CFO of a trucking company, and I'm like, oh, this is broken and blah, 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 blah. And he said, how do we fix it? And I'm like, I don't know. I just know that it's broken. And he's like, well, slides a book across the table, The 1 Minute Manager. And he's like, read this book and come back and see me tomorrow. And, in the book, I learned what he was talking about. He's like, oh, if you don't have a solution, you're just complaining. And it changed my life. So but he took the time as the CFO of a trucking company to not just shoo a 21-year-old kid out of his office. He's like, read this book and you'll understand what I'm talking about. And so I'm a huge fan of spending time with people who are inquisitive and want to learn. And I would just encourage them to seek those people out and to take the time to do that. Now, I will say, if you have a young family, you need to take care of your family. You need to make sure you're spending time with your family, but you do need to develop that network of people.
Yeah. And, what you said there just reminded me of a leader I had, that she would ask me, are you venting, or do you need me to do something? Because I can play either role.
I love that.
Almost every time I would say, no, I don't need you to do anything.
Right.
I just needed to talk through this. Whereas other times I would have leaders that would just, let me take it and then do it instead of, what did you say earlier? Instead of, get it done. They would just take it from me. They would do it themselves. Well, you just stole an opportunity for me to learn. Right.
Yep.
So I love that. Yeah. I'd like to pivot here towards the end. There's so many buzzwords. There's always buzzwords in supply chain, and I always joke that our last big advancement was the fax machine, and so, but today, like all you hear about, there's AI everywhere and all this other kind of, autonomous vehicles and blah, 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 blah. As you think about the future of supply chain, what do you think is going to be like the next maybe big innovation or pivot that we're going to see?
That's a good one. What do I want it to be, or what do I think is going to be? Right? Yeah,
maybe both.
I will go. I think that we are going to see more data sharing in. I think we're going to see people who have disparate systems, and there are different sections of the supply chain, whether it's vessel operators to terminal operators to port operators to drayage companies to transload operators. I think we're going to see greater access to data, to your data inside of the supply chain, and which is going to drive incredibly valuable and actionable insights. And maybe I'm kind of manifesting that a little bit, because that's really what I want to see as well. And I think that, we just recently had Dr. Noel Hasagaba on our podcast, and he talked about how the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach are coming together to actually do something similar to that and make data more accessible to drayage companies. So I'm hopeful that we see a pretty significant advancement in the next 5 years as far as data accessibility.
I'm gonna pounce on the data. I don't know if I'm really going to answer your question, Mariana, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about data, because I think it's important. Data is important, but this may be a common sense is critical. So, AI, automation, analytics, all that's transforming the industry. And crystal ball wise, I don't know what's really coming, but I hope, at the end of the day, the practical experience and common sense, that will always be valuable. So I would just, tell the audience, don't blindly follow a system's recommendation if it doesn't make sense on the ground, but I think data is going to be getting access to data, getting access to, good data, is going to be ultra critical. Like Higgins was just saying. So, but at the end of the day, even though, data is important, the world runs on data. But those who know how to use it and build the relationships shape the future. And I say that because I just got in front of
goosebumps.
I know. Well, I say this because I just had a great opportunity to be in front of some college students. So this is fresh on my mind and in my preparation of what I wanted to convey. And really what I want to convey to the audience as well is the world runs on data, but those who know how to use it and build strong relationships shape the future. Yeah. So data is going to be really important. Everything that Higgins just said, he and I are very passionate about the data and visibility and all the things technology and AI are presenting to the industry that can be done. There's a lot that is being done right now, and that's what probably excites me the most, is that the technology and the AI and the data component of it will help the next generation really make a lot of these decisions in a much quicker fashion.
Yeah, but I want to tag on real quick if I can. What KP is saying, it's incredibly important. It does not matter if we have access to all of our data in one repository or not. If you don't know how to run your business in a manual mode, you cannot manage your business in an automated mode. So you have got to be able to manage your business with a pen and notebook, because you will then be able to see how you can run it more efficiently when you have the best systems and the best data.
Higgins, you should have gone with me. You're picking up on. I talked a lot about contingency planning and risk management, and that's exactly what you just said. And I've done a lot of that. You know, we've all done that. A lot of that in our career.
Yeah.
I even told
100%.
somebody that was 50% of my time
Yeah.
of what I did was risk management and contingency
Yep.
planning. So, you know, not that I'm an expert. However, I'm an expert because I've done a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
But
got the
what you
scars to
just
prove it.
said, yeah, is being prepared and being ready, and the
Yeah.
data
Yeah.
will help you do that.
100%.
Yeah, it's, you know, of course, I love that y'all are saying data and visibility because, you know, my day job is with a tech firm in supply chain, and, you know, at Vector, that's what we do, right?
Yep.
But
Good.
what I love about what we do is that we also come in with a lens of how can we look at this process in a different way, right? Because you're kind of like that third party looking in
Yep.
and saying, you know, well, why is that the way? Should it be that way? How can we help improve it? And then how can we show information back to that end user in a way that will reveal things of,
Yep.
oh, now I can see further back in my supply chain. And I think with having the import background, we're so used to, like, you want to know where everything's manufactured. Like, there's all these rules and regulations, and right. But when you're more on a domestic side, I feel like now there is a drive to get further back in that supply chain, even domestically, of I'm shipping to a consolidator, right? Because I'm going to buy a pallet, not a full truckload.
Right.
So I'm consolidating it with other stuff. Well, it's the same thing we did on import.
Yep.
Right. And that I, as the buyer, I want to know, did it actually ship from my vendor? Has it arrived at the consolidator?
Right. Yeah.
Right. And we're helping bridge that gap because we're kind of agnostic of carrier. We're agnostic of third-party provider from a warehousing perspective.
That's
and we
great.
can show that global view. So what you're saying, I'm passionate about as well, because I've seen when you actually take information and you layer on the real world experience, right? Because we've all had, oh, you can run this fleet with, you know, 100 man fleet with 40 drivers. Well, did you realize what the speed limit is? Okay. Well, what speed limit you put in there is not what a truck driver can drive.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Especially in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, you have to be able to layer in really cool data analytics with real world logic to create what I think can be fundamentally changing strategies for an organization.
Yeah. Absolutely. And oh God, I remember we could talk about this for hours, man. I just remember back in the early days, like vessel ETA is today, right? So vessel comes in at noon today, buyer comes up at 1:30. Is my container off the ship? You're like,
did you hot hatch it?
Yeah. No.
That was my favorite.
No. So
nope.
Some of the best things, and again, back to relationships, right? So what we used to do is we would take buyers to the port. Yeah. And this is pre September 11th. We took buyers and we got them on the ships and we showed them. They're like, wow, it's 7 high, 5 below. You know, this is a very big ship and there's 4 cranes. And so they had, we work to educate them. And I just think, again, it's those relationships, right? Because if they don't understand your business, you got to go understand their business and help them and educate them on your business. It just makes a much better flow.
But then they bring you along when they're doing the line review for the holiday set, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It all of a sudden now, January 2nd, right? You're in China looking at Christmas trees for the next season.
That's right.
And it's an amazing experience when you start creating those connections.
100%.
And then you actually see your real life results, because you can walk into a store and you can be like, oh yeah, I remember when that was just an idea, when that was one prototype. And
invaluable.
The beauty of supply chain is it gives you this really cool, I don't know, it's tangible.
Yeah. I used to love walking in. I'd be like, oh, there's department 18, there's department 14, there's department 7. And you're like, yeah, I was on that buy trip and I was on that buy trip. And I saw those Christmas lights in the factory before they ship. So it's just it's just a beautiful mess. And I love every second of it.
I like that beautiful mess. I like that, Higgins. That's good.
So this has been an amazing conversation,
This
and I
was like
know
2.0. We had you on ours, you had us on yours. So we need to do a 3.0, okay?
I'll come
Which
back to
means
yours.
you come back to our
Yeah, yeah,
house,
yeah.
and, right? You come back to ours and we just continue the conversation, right?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm glad that, like, sometimes when you have a sequel, it's not as good as the first one. This is
Oh,
better
no.
than the first one. So that means, like, when we get
Well,
there and we do the third, it's going to be even better.
we need a trilogy. We got to have a trilogy.
Right.
We got 1
Yep.
and 2, so we need at least a trilogy.
Yep.
And then after that, we'll figure out, do we want to
It's-
ever do it again or not?
It's
Right?
like Lord of the Rings. Parkerson is about the size of a hobbit, so that's what we'll call it.
I knew you were going to pull in the Hobbit. How did I know that?
It didn't.
I'm right there
I
with
had to
you.
wait till the
Literally,
last second,
I'm
but I
truer
did
than
it.
you. I'm the pocket person.
It is after
know-
hours, so
Uh,
dude.
What if people are really excited about what you both bring to the table? I know we have your YouTube on here because it is a great way to go see your episodes of your
Yes.
show and podcast. If people want to reach out to you individually, is the best way via LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn, I've got a website, kpglc.com, that you can also get access to our, Kevin and I's Kev Talks, Real World Global Logistics podcasting. But on that, you can get both of us on LinkedIn, but you can get me in particular and get access to my calendar on my website. And be more than happy to set up some time to talk and visit.
yeah. And
Or bring you on the podcast with us.
Yeah, for sure. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. I mean, you can email me, Kevin@oriongl.com is the best way. And then my websites are oriongl.com. Getting ready to launch a new website for our new venture. So we'll be posting that out soon. But yeah, the podcast, LinkedIn, email me. So,
and this is Higgins' personal cell number. It is 555 243.
Yeah, we're gonna
bring it on.
Texting
so
all
I always
hours
like
of
to
the day.
I always love to do a little recap at the end with my handy dandy pen. And I won't go through all my notes because there were so many nuggets here, but some of the highlights were really around relationships matter more than anything else.
Yes.
And that it's so strong in supply chain when you have those relationships with, across the board, from your internal customers to your external providers and your external customers, you can really start driving change. You should be comfortable in chaos, and problem solvers are the ones that really succeed in supply chain, especially when you can stay calm under pressure. Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about, being willing to learn, take different roles, get uncomfortable, and so that you can have that more global mindset. We talked about kind of the future of more data and more data sharing, and how supply chain information, people are going to want to get deeper into their supply chain, and people are going to be more willing to actually share that information because they know that can drive improvements across the industry. And, we spent time as well with some really great feedback, I think, for new leaders where it's all around that continued learning. And you talked about, go to industry events, go get certifications, find mentors, be a mentor for someone else, and look for leaders who've been where you want to go and be willing to spend time with them, learn from them. It's going to expose you to a lot more than you think, and will open doors in the long run that maybe you never could have anticipated. So those were some highlights from our conversation today.
Those are great.
This was
I love
amazing.
all of that.
Yeah. And Mariana, if I can add one thing to add to that for anybody, honestly, it's never wrong to do what's right for the business.
Yeah.
And this is why Kevin and I think are really good together. I'm going to bolt on to that and talk about reputation is everything.
Mm-hmm.
This industry is smaller than you think, and word travels fast. So be a person known for honesty, reliability, and solutions. Your reputation will carry a lot more weight than any job title that you've ever had or any kind of money that you're making. So that just goes in with what you were saying, Higgins. And that's really passionate of mine, that the reputation that you have is everything. And remember that in all the decisions and how you conduct yourself in business and in life.
Yeah. It's the only thing you take with you.
At really big companies, right? Really big companies. And a lot of times people will answer your phone because what pops up is a Walmart or a Home Depot or a JB Hunt
100%.
or, and when you leave that big company, what I have found, those relationships, how I treated people, those individuals still answer my phone call.
Yep.
Preach. Yep. 100%.
But it doesn't
Yeah.
happen every time. So it's
No.
really, I think, when you create those relationships, it's like Maya Angelou. It's not, it's how you made somebody feel is what they're
Yeah.
going to remember.
That's perfect. I love that.
So
That's
with
great.
that, thank you both, Kevin and Kevin, for joining Might in Motion today.
This
You're
was
welcome.
awesome.
Thanks for having us.
So much. Yeah.
This was fun.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Might in Motion. Remember, every step forward counts, and the power to create momentum starts with you. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, share, and leave us a review. It makes a huge difference. Until next time, stay inspired, stay mindful, and keep moving with might.